Hi, John.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So we're here in Rotterdam. The audience you see behind is in Rotterdam, and then there is another Rotterdam who is also watching us, and they are
Wow.
able to ask questions as well. I'm going to explain one more time how people are able to ask questions. You have to go to the website pigeonhole.at and you use Roffa Mon Amour to kind of log into our Q&A, and you can type your question, and we'll be able to read them, as you can see now in the screen on the YouTube channel.
You were very high tech.
Yes, we are super high tech. So we all have Bloody Mary, and I'd like to thank you for being here, and cheers to John Carroll Lynch, people, and for the beautiful film Lucky we just watched.
Thank you.
You have quite an impressive career as an actor, and obviously we'd love to know a bit more about you moving from the front of the camera to behind the camera. And also considering this amazing result, I'd love to know if you want to continue this new step in your career as a director.
I've been wanting to direct for quite a while. I've been trying to find ways to leverage myself into the chair for quite a bit of time through working on some scripts and also to when I'm on television shows to talk somebody into letting me direct. Those are the normal ways that actors get to direct to start out. And this kind of fell into my lap. Drago Shumanyo, one of the co-writers of the film, had asked me to act in the movie, and then out of the blue, a couple months later, said they wanted to ask if I would direct because Drago knew I had been wanting to, and he thought having an actor direct this movie because it's so character-centric, so performance-centric was the way they wanted to go. He and Logan Sparks, who are both actors by trade as well. So I talked to them about where we wanted to go with the movie and started working on it then. And gratefully, we were able to, from the time I joined to the time we were finished with production was less than a year.
Well, did you consider doing
as far
both,
as doing
the
it again is
acting and
concerned,
directing?
for about 5 seconds, I considered
Okay.
doing both. But with the needs of such an intensive part for Harry Dean, it didn't seem like a great fit to have somebody doing 2 jobs at once when every scene began and ended with him. It just felt like it was too much. And gratefully, I was able to find, and ask Barry Shabaka Henley to play Joe, which was the part that I was going to play the diner owner. So it was, I didn't lose anything by not doing it. Yeah, as far as doing it again, yes, I'm planning on directing again. What that is at the moment, I don't know, but I'm interested in it. Yes, very much so.
And I'm sure many other people are interested in working with you now. You won't have to try in television shows anymore. And I wondered if the script was written for Harry Dean Stanton or if the story already existed and then they thought of him as the best actor.
The story was created for Harry from Harry's life. The 2 writers had known Harry for a long time, and Logan had been his assistant for a long time, and they came up with this idea of this guru on the edge of a desert, that Harry might play, and it turned into this film. And Harry was the only person that we would have done the movie with, because it is really based on him. He didn't live this life. The fiction portions of the film, he didn't live in a small desert town. He didn't, walk around in the desert. His friend David Lynch isn't in love with a tortoise. But the stories in the film give you an idea of who Lucky is are almost all biographical. I think they are all biographical. So those stories about World War II. Harry did serve in World War II on an LST. He told the Mockingbird story about killing that mockingbird as a 10-year-old with a BB gun. And also his story of his Aunt Beulah those were all autobiographical. So it's a strange film that is based on the actor that plays the part.
Yeah, and one of my other questions was, that he, considering the subject of the film, the process of dying, you must have spoken a lot about that. And I wondered if Harry Dean Stanton was scared, or what was that like?
I mean, we talked about the script, not so much about his dying, but the character's, moment of mortality, that he suddenly realizes that death is so close, and that it's something that he can't think, making some decision about it, he can't put off any longer. And we talked about that in the context of the script, but I sense that, during those conversations that Harry was, as best as one can be, prepared to face whatever was going to happen next. But the thing is that I think when he finally started to really fall ill seriously, of course, the body doesn't get the memo. The body fights back to try to stay alive. So he went through a lot of ups and downs on his way to finally letting go, and his body kept on trying. Kept on trying to fix it, because that's what they do.
Yeah, it must have. I mean, it's already quite a heavy subject, and your film is very funny. But given the fact that he actually passed away, it makes me feel a bit emotional. It must have been hard for you too. You've worked.
It was it was painful. It was painful when he died. It wasn't a surprise. He was 91, so even when we were in the process of preparing to make the film, it was really important that we moved quickly. When you were looking at to financiers to say, listen, our lead is 89, and you can say no, but just say no right away so we can move on. There was a lot of intention of that, but gratefully most people said yes, and we were able to do it quickly and get it in, because 14 months later he was dead. So it was a very fortunate set of circumstances for us, and I think for him there's something in this movie that he wanted to say. He didn't have any intention of working this hard ever again, I don't think. No. He had turned down lead roles over the course of the last 3 to 5 years before he died, because he just was like, now it sounds like too much work. So there was something in this that he wanted to do.
Wow, yeah, it's really amazingly beautiful, actually.
Thank you.
He did this.
Thank you.
Yeah. And are there actually any questions yet from the audience before? There is a question. What's the last scene where he smiled, edited, or selected on purpose because of Harry Dean Stanton's recent death?
It was in the script. We had been talking about that moment with the Saguaro. It was in the original script. This moment where he kind of communes with the closest thing that any human being can get to eternity in a physical sense. That saguaro cactus that he was standing next to is 1,500 years old. So it's like a redwood. It's a real, for all intents and purposes, for human beings, that might as well be eternity. So that was in the script, but one of the producers kept on prodding the writers to find something to make that moment experiential for the audience. And Drago came up with that, breaking the fourth wall. And looking at the audience, and it creates such an immediacy. The minute I read it, I knew it was the right thing, and the minute we did it, it was so moving. Just even on the set, that there was no doubt it would be in the film. We never shot anything else.
And how about, because there is the story about the Okinawan girl that smiles, and this also becomes kind of a red thread in the film, where when he later repeats that, and what kind of story was that?
Well, that story is actually one of the fictional parts of the film. It was written for the film. It didn't happen to anybody, but it really captured the sense of. It gave the character a solution. It gave the character some way in which to see life, and I think for me, it's an important thing to try to live each day with joy, because the alternative just seems like a waste.
Yeah. Okay, there's another question coming in. Who was Lucky Calling in the movie?
Who was Lucky Calling in the movie? That's it.
Yeah. Next one.
It's left for you to decide. I know who I think he was calling. I wonder who you think he was calling.
Okay. So for the person that asked the question, who do you think he was calling? I'm kind of curious.
I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to ruin it for you.
Oh, yeah. Of all those great directors you've worked with, who influenced you most in making your debut? Or do you find more inspirations in films you watch as an outsider rather than on set?
For this particular film, we talked a lot about essentially 5 directors: Peter Bogdanovich, John Ford, David Lynch,
Nice.
and Jim Jarmusch. I think those were the 4 primary ones. And then I was in Poland at Camera Image, and one of the DPs I had worked with in another thing said, "There's so much of the way that Clint Eastwood, works on movies in this film, and I wondered if you were thinking about that." And I was like, "No," but now that you mention it, it was very much like a Clint Eastwood set, because we were, the ethos of the movie is if you could do it in one take or do it in one setup, you'd do it in one setup. That had to do with the tone of the film, but it also had to do with the fact that we were challenged time-wise. This entire movie was produced in 18 days, so it wasn't like we had a lot of time.
And what was it? I'm so curious about Stanton. Like, what kind of days would he make? How many hours was he working?
We really stuck with tried to stick with a 12-hour door-to-door rule for him. So he would work somewhere between 9 and 10 hours. A very long day for anybody. Yeah. And he was in every scene, so it's not like he had any time off. He was on set the entire time. The only time he wasn't on set was when he was outside smoking.
Oh, yeah, that would have been one of our questions, too. Was he smoking American Spirit?
Yes, he was smoking American Spirits until he couldn't smoke anymore.
Wow. There's another great role play in Lucky. You are, of course, behind the camera, and David Lynch is in front of it. And I wanted to know how he got involved in the film, and what was it like for you to direct him? Also, what was it like to direct David Lynch, but also as an actor directing such a dinosaur?
Well, David joined the cast at Harry's suggestion. He and Harry had known each other since 1970, and he'd done 7 projects with David, including the most recent series of Twin Peaks. So, in which he sings Red River Valley, interestingly enough, completely unrelated. There was something about Red River Valley, that song that we use, that had something to do with Harry. But he suggested David for the role. And we all thought that was a terrific idea, and we pursued that for a long while. It was tricky because he was in post-production for Twin Peaks, but he made himself available for 2 days, and we shot all of his scenes in 2 days. And he came. I think he came prepared to the set as any actor that would work on that he would want any actor that was working on his set to come, as prepared as he did.
Did he change his script because it feels so David Lynch?
He might have changed. I think he changed it. No, he changed it so it was easier to say. Nothing that was said in that Howard said was changed in substance. He just made it a little easier for him to say. And when any actor does that, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when David Lynch, a writer of his capability, said, "I'd like to move a couple things around if that's okay," you go, "Yeah, we'll hear it. Sure. I guess we'll take. We'll give you a shot." But to direct him was a great joy. Because he was so dedicated to being an actor on that day, and he came and was prepared and took notes and made great adjustments and played well with others, and it was just and he knows the camera so well that he knew where his frame lines were and what the intensity levels should be. So he was really on point. I have I'm sorry to say, I only have a couple more, about 5 more minutes, I'm sorry to say. So I'll need to cut this. Great, terrific.
Then I'm done. Yeah. Okay. Last question. Wait. Lucky is cast out of Eden. Is the movie also about a certain idea of America, an ideal America of the past, dying and accepting that?
Oh, that's an intense question.
Deep closure.
Certainly, yes, certainly.
In 5
minutes. Certainly you can't put that man in the desert with his filmography and not think of the other films that the filmmakers that we were talking about, like Last Picture Show and John Ford, like The Searchers or whatever you might think of. Those are all kind of and if you put somebody in a cowboy hat, people are going to think of America as a metaphor. I never thought of it that way so much as but I can understand why people might. But I don't find it idealized. That's an interesting way of thinking of it. It was important that this small town, for me, reflect an America that I live in. So I wanted it to be reflective of that racially and to some degree and economically, and how it feels to be in a small town. And just like the small town America is very much, I imagine it's true all over the world, smaller towns are getting smaller and smaller. I think that there's a sense that this town is on its last legs, but it's not dead yet, kind of like Lucky.
Nice. I think that's a nice closure for this Q&A. Let's give an applause for John Carroll Lynch. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I just want to personally thank you all for being there. Audiences like yours are the reason why we can still make these movies, and you give every filmmaker hope by being there at 2300 on a Thursday night. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much
Bye.
for saying that. And we're looking
Take care.
forward to see your new work. Bye bye.